Welcome to Sunday Springboard with Melanie and Kimberlyn Coaching, where we help women find their strength and flourish after major life transitions. If y'all remember, we are working on a series. I'm talking about influencers, factors in our lives that can work for us or against us in creating power, energy, enthusiasm, enjoyment in our lives. And we are discussing the emotional one now. We started the first lesson last week, and today is part 2 of emotions. So we are emotional beings. We have emotions. We want to feel them. We want to express them, but we don't want to let them control us. Last week we learned about becoming aware of our emotions and understanding our emotions. Today we're going to talk about expressing them, having some control over them, learning how to respond rather than react, and how to limit having buttons to be pushed. So there's a story about a woman up on a mountain. The mountain is freezing cold, snowy. She's trying to get to the bottom of the mountain, super cold. She's all dressed up in all her warm parka and everything, and she sees a snake. And the snake says, please, please help me. Would you put me inside your coat and take me to the bottom of the mountain? And help me get down there. I'm going to die if I stay up here. She says, no, you're a snake. You'll bite me. He goes, no, I promise I won't. I won't bite you. If you will just take me, put me in your coat, carry me down so I won't die. I promise I will not hurt you. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I can trust you. I think you're going to hurt me. They talk a little bit, and he convinces her that if she'll do this for him, he will not hurt her. He will not bite her. So she does. She wraps him in her coat. She gets down to the bottom of the mountain, lets him out, and he turns around and he bites her. She's like, what in the world? What did you do? Why did you bite me? You said you wouldn't bite me. And he goes, silly woman, I'm a snake. Snakes bite. What does this story have to do with emotions? Well, this story helped me a long time ago. I had a person in my life who was doing mean things to me, and every time it would happen, I would just be so upset. I can't believe they did that to me. And when I read this story, I thought, oh, certain kinds of people do certain kinds of things. Snakes bite. Liars lie. Cheaters cheat. People that do mean things do mean things. And by looking at it that way, I was able to not be so surprised when these things happened to me. They still were disruptive and hurtful, but not like they were before, where I got so upset because I just couldn't believe why this would happen to me, and I was surprised every time. So hang on to this story. We're going to talk about this some more when we get to the end of today's talk. So we're going to start off first. We're going to talk about expressing our emotions. We are emotional beings. We have emotions. God made us that way. And if we don't express our emotions, if we don't express them in appropriate ways, either we get sick or they end up coming out in inappropriate ways. So many people have limiting beliefs about emotions. Maybe we feel like we should not express our emotions. Maybe we feel like we need to be stoic, and that if we express our emotions, we're weak, or we're seen as weak. And then other people feel like just let them all out and be highly expressive. And both ways have their pros and cons, and both ways have appropriate and inappropriate. So what we want to do is we want to learn to express our emotion in an appropriate way at the appropriate time, and to whatever degree we need to, in order to be able to not be overwhelmed by the emotion, not have the emotion just sitting there. Remember the story about the beach ball under the water? I don't know if I've told y'all this one before, but so you've got a beach ball, and holding your emotions down and not express them is like trying to hold that beach ball under the water. So you hold it here, and it kind of pops up. It will not allow you to keep it down, and your emotions are that way. If you're trying to keep down your emotions by whatever way, by an addiction, drinking, drugs, food, shopping, relationships, whatever it is you're trying, or just denying them, maybe, it's going to be like that beach ball. And so eventually those emotions are going to pop up, but they may pop up in ways you don't even realize what they are, because you haven't been dealing with them. And so what we want to do now is we want to learn to express them in appropriate ways. So like we said, there are some inappropriate ways. Think about someone who rolls their eyes when you make a comment, or you've seen someone get super upset when just a little kind of a minor thing doesn't go right. Those are inappropriate ways, but there are appropriate ways. And so think about yourself. How do you express yourself emotionally? Are you someone who wears your heart on your sleeve and people can read like a book? Are you thoughtful and considerate even if you disagree with someone? Or do you experience feelings of being numb and apathetic? How do you react to losing, or how do you react to winning? How do you react when things go your way, or how do you react when they don't? Would you consider your reactions to be appropriate or inappropriate? So the answers to these previous questions say a lot about your emotional intelligence. So really what we want to do is, after we've become aware last week and we understood them, now today we're going to work on how can we express them appropriately. So one thing that happens when we're working on all this is we want to learn to be able to have some control of our emotions. We can't always be expressing them at every time, right? There are times when we have to be putting our focus or our thoughts on something else. Maybe we're at work. Maybe we are taking care of our children, or we're with our family, or there are times that we have to be thinking about something else other than what is bothering us right now, and we have to for a little while maybe put those emotions on the back burner. And we want to be able to do that. If we are working on our emotions on a daily or weekly or basis enough where we don't have them all barreling up out of our head, then we can at times stop, hang on to those, and say, I will take care of this when I get to a safe spot. Maybe when you're home, maybe when you're out in your car, maybe if you have to go to the bathroom and be in there by yourself a little, that's okay. But we just want to be able to deal with them enough to where you can have some control over them, to where then you can get to a spot that's appropriate for you to be able to express them and deal with them. So one of the things that's important when we think about emotional control is so one part of it is dealing with your emotion in the moment, being able to have some control over the moment. But then we also want to talk about and think about how to have some control over our thoughts, because we remember that our thoughts are what create our emotions. So if we can work on our thoughts, that will affect our emotions. Remember that the emotions are just that. They're just emotions, and although we may not think so at the moment, we create our own emotions, and we can recreate them anytime we choose. So emotions only hold the power that we give to them. Our belief system, remember, our belief system and our thoughts create our emotions. If you look at all your relationships, you would find that nearly all of the times that you are having issues, it's because you're telling yourself a story, you're having an interpretation. So most of our responses are learned. These have come from our past. Experiences we've had in life have led to those limiting beliefs and those assumptions. We talked about that, right, a while ago. We talked about the different things that block our energy. We talked about limiting beliefs, assumptions, stories that we tell us in our head that cause these emotions to happen. So if we work on those, we become aware of those stories, we can start to decide, are those stories really true? Are these interpretations really true? Once we change our thoughts, we change our beliefs. So remember, our thoughts create our beliefs or feelings, those create our actions, and then the actions create responses or consequences, whatever. So if we don't like the responses, the consequences we are experiencing in life, we can back up to the behavior, back up to the feeling, and then back up originally to the thought that is behind that. So there's some exercises I work on with my clients that can help them learn more about themselves, be able to see what this programming is. With that awareness, then they can learn to accept the responses and then begin to decide which emotions that they want to prevent or increase in their lives. So we want to talk about responding instead of reacting. So most of the time, when we just react to something, we generally aren't reacting in a way that we're actually later on we're happy about. So if we learn to control our emotions, at least to some degree, then we can learn to respond in a situation rather than react. We can choose our words, we can choose our emotions, we can choose how we respond. So Sometimes, like I said before, we make interpretations that lead us to be upset with something that's just happened or something that someone has done or said. We say that someone is pushing our buttons. But the thing is, nobody can push a button that is not there already. I know you hate that. I hate that too. But if someone is pushing my button, it's because I have a button to push. When someone pushes my buttons, I respond with that catabolic energy, which remember the catabolic is the tearing down kind, the tiring us out, wears us out, negative energy. So when they push my button, the button that I have allowed to be there, and it affects my energy, then I don't have as much of the energy as I need to use to focus on what I need to focus on. So it's important, as we said, to remember you can only push a button that exists. So let's say this, let's look at this story. So you've got this executive, she's very confident, she's well known for speaking to large groups of people. She feels very confident, she goes out, she does a speech, and then someone makes a negative comment about her speech. Now if she is confident, then she's probably just going to laugh that off. If she is not, if she feels a little insecure, if she's kind of struggling a bit, she's not feeling like this is as good as she wishes it would be, then when someone makes that statement, she's going to be upset. She's going to feel like her button was pushed. So if you doubt your ability in some area and someone reinforces that by commenting on it, then that pushes your button. They reinforce your belief, and then you feel like your button was pushed. So if this button is pushed, you become emotionally hijacked, and then your performance, your energy, and your life suffers. Excuse me. I have a 6-step process here for dealing with buttons. Ideally, you could do this as the button is getting pushed. Probably at first you're going to do it afterwards, after it's already happened, and you can look back. But if you can, stop first. Number 1 is stop. When you start to feel someone has said something, you start to feel that negative emotion, that catabolic energy, just stop. Don't do anything for just a second. And number 2, just breathe. Just take a breath. Then ask yourself, how appropriate is my response and is my emotional reaction to this situation? Then you ask yourself, what story am I telling myself that is causing me to be upset? Then you say, what else might really be going on here? And then if this situation comes up again, how can I handle it differently? What energy level do I choose to respond from? And what can I do about it long term? So if this executive we've just talked about, she's gotten a little bit upset, and she's dealing with her speaking button that just got pushed, and she thinks, I'm upset. What's bothering me? Yeah, Sheila's comment about my speaking was irritating, but what's really bothering me? I guess that I'm upset that this area isn't as strong as it could be. I'm worried that if I don't nail this presentation, my staff won't see me the way I want them to. I guess I don't want to be embarrassed. I think that's the core issue. So I think I'll discuss this with my coach or maybe another person that she feels comfortable talking to. So in short term, her coach would help her do this 6-step process when something upsets her again. In the long term, then they would help her to get the core of her belief system, get to the core to try to change that basic belief about herself, about her self-worth, her value, and the things that are causing her to, the things underneath that are causing her to have that button. So in this case, she learned from her situation, and you remember what we've talked about, mastery orientation versus performance. So she's moving into a mastery orientation now, where she believes that everything is growing, learning, every experience is worthwhile. It doesn't have to be perfect. Because even if it's not perfect, she can learn something for it. And remember, if she was having that performance mindset, she would, it's pass fail. If it's not perfect, it's a failure. And then of course that person could push her button so much easier when you have the performance mindset. If you have a mastery orientation, you don't really have as many buttons to be pushed because you are you have higher self-worth, because you know yourself, that you are learning and growing, and that's all you have to be. So you might want to keep a button pushing journal. You could record the situations in which your button was pushed. You could record what emotions you experienced, what thoughts came behind that, what were the interpretations that you were making, and how you would handle that button if it happens again. How can you change things so that you, in the long term, you want to remove the button to where it's not even there. So remember that you don't have to attend every argument or drama that you're invited to. And I also love this one. You don't have to believe everything you think. Right? That's a good one. I like that one. So over time, you can identify which situations and which interpretations occur repeatedly. One good question to ask yourself is, why do I allow myself to get upset by things that I know will happen? This takes us back to our snake story. Do you have situations in your life, people in your life, situations that happen, negative things happen on a regular basis? Maybe these are situations you can't get out of at the moment or ever. There are situations you don't have a choice with there. The only thing you have a choice about is your reactions. So if you know these situations, these people are going to have negative things coming from them, if you're aware of it, then maybe you can have less buttons to push. They still might be, the situation still might be negative and you don't like them, but maybe you can lessen your emotional reaction to where it's not so bad, because instead of being upset, oh, I can't believe this happened, and being surprised, you're like, yeah, well, that's what they do. And then move on. It gives you more power over your emotions, more power over your thoughts, more power over your life. If you think you would like some help getting more power over your life, over your emotions, if you feel like you're overwhelmed and you would like to not be overwhelmed, continue hiring me as your coach. Go to my website, KimberlyCoaching.com, fill out the form at the bottom of the Work With Me page, and I will contact you and we can have a great talk about where to go from there. Meanwhile, I hope you've learned some things. I hope you can work on lowering your buttons, having less buttons, having more control of your emotions, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks.